guys, welcome to another Bible Rant video. I missed last month. I think I definitely missed last month. Life has been kind of crazy lately. I am finishing up my CDA class for work, which if you don't know what that is, it's Child Development Associate. So it's just a nationwide certification that just gives me more potential in my job. So I have been taking that for the last 8 months or something. And I am 1 month away from finishing. So that's been a little bit crazy. Work has kind of thrown me around. If it's not clear, I work in a daycare, and I have been moved between rooms to help with teamwork between teachers, and it's just been kind of nuts lately. Literally this week, our front desk person decided they wanted to go into a classroom, so then I had a one-day notice that I would take over that job. So that's been a learning curve. So my life has been nuts at this point. I also got engaged in January. This is my work silicone ring, nothing fancy. But I got engaged in January, so I've had wedding planning on top of all of that. It's just been quite crazy lately, and I'm surprised I've been getting videos out in general. So getting my Bible videos out has unfortunately slipped my mind the last couple weeks, but we're back. Lent season is a wonderful excuse to get back into these kinds of videos. We've talked about my poor sad Bible. I did get a new one. Which is so bittersweet, and it's just kind of ridiculous. I got it last month, but I wanted to finish up the notebook I was in with this Bible, because if I'm gonna start new, I might as well start entirely new. And I got a highlighting system now. It's crazy. I figured if I'm gonna start new, I might as well start everything new. So yeah, there's that. And I've been doing this one for the last 2 or 3 weeks. But what I want to talk about is in this one. So this is probably the last Bible video that includes this one, unless I find something very interesting looking back through this at some point. But last Bible video with the pink Bible. The poor ragged pink Bible. I've had this since I was in grade school. So considering, it doesn't look half bad. Anyway, since I missed last month, I have read 3 different short books. I started Psalms a couple weeks ago, probably about a month ago. Because I started in this one and then I transferred over to that one. So yeah, I'm in Psalms. That might take me a couple of months to get through. So there may not be a Bible video quite like this for the next couple of months. But for now, I read through Ruth, Hosea, and the Song of Solomon, Song of Solomon, depending on your translation. I've heard of both. I read through all of those in the past 2 months of this year, the first 2 months of this year, or whatever, because they're short books. So we're gonna quick talk about all of those. Yeah. Here we go. We'll go somewhat in order. We'll start with Ruth because I probably started Ruth first. That's kind of what we were doing in my Bible study, which we're still in Ruth because craziness. Yeah. But anyway, going through Ruth, and Ruth is wonderful. We were following a sermon series that was kind of talking about how Ruth is the story of the Bible, the story of the gospel, written out in these 4 chapters. And it really is true, seeing all the different parallels between the book of Ruth and then later the story of Jesus is very cool. And yeah, also just wonderful characters. The loyalty Ruth shows to Naomi throughout this entire book is incredible. Also, the sermon series gave a lot of cool historical context for different details, which was also fun. So I might name some of those. There was really one section in particular that I found a lot of cool details that he added. So the first chapter is, we set it up. Everyone dies. Now Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah are on their own. And Naomi chooses to go back to her hometown, which happens to be Bethlehem, because, spoiler alert, Ruth is, through this story in this book, it's worked into the genealogy of Jesus. So they go back. Naomi chooses to go back. Orpah and Ruth try to come with her. She tells him, no, there's no prospects for you if you come with me. Go back to your home. You can have a fresh start and find someone new. Orpah goes, okay, cool, goes back. But Ruth comes out with one of the hardest lines of loyalty to ever come out of the Old Testament that I have read so far. It's been a while since I've read many books of the Old Testament. So from what I've reread so far, hardest line of loyalty. So it's obviously chapter 1, verses 16 through 17. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to return back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you from me. So yeah, literally just like, nope, I'm bound to you no matter what happens. No matter where you go or what happens to you, that is where I will be, and that is what I will be doing. And so it's just such a wonderful story of loyalty on Ruth's part. We also have an importance of names in this book. So we have Naomi, which means pleasant or something generally positive. And she gets back home, and after losing her husband, her sons, everything, and probably all of her, everything she knows from home, because they went to Moab to avoid a famine. And so people are just like, oh my gosh, is this Naomi? And she goes, no, don't call me that. Don't call me this positive thing. My entire life has fallen apart. Call me Mara, which means bitter and more negative, and this more negative connotation. And her literally changing her name to fit how she sees herself in that moment is a very cool section that they focused on in this podcast sermon series, whatever that we were listening to. And it was just a cool focus to have on the names and how she changed it based on how she saw herself and how she identified herself. So that was cool. Chapter 2 is pretty straightforward. Ruth goes out into the field to get food because they need food, ends up meeting Boaz by coincidence, and he's obviously very good to her. She goes back, tells Naomi about that, and Naomi's just like, what are the odds? That's our relative. He's our guardian, yes? Make sure I have the title right. Guardian Redeemer? Yes, maybe. Now I'm not going to be able to find it. Yeah, Guardian Redeemer. Guardian Redeemer. Which was a cool historical explanation to the title and the role of a Guardian Redeemer in that sermon series, but I can't remember the details of that off the top of my head. But it was basically just they protect and even in some cases buy back land and all of that. So to protect the honor and the security of whoever is the recipient of their title. I don't know. Those are not the right words, but whatever. Then we get into chapter 3, which is where Ruth goes to Boaz on the threshing floor. They have the whole she lays at his feet. She uncovers his feet and lays down, and all of that stuff that we don't understand in this culture. So this was probably the most interesting sermon to me because he goes through all of the different cultural, historical traditions and facts and stuff, so you understand it. And the main one that my brain focused on and held on to is in chapter 3, verse 3, when Naomi says, wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes, to Ruth. And it just kind of sounds like, oh, get yourself all pretty, then go lay at his feet, because I'm trying to set you up with this guy. And the actual meaning behind this, in a more simplistic version of what they said in the sermon, because I don't remember it all word for word. It's been literal months. But basically, when Jews mourned, they would put on sackcloth, cover themselves in ash, physically, they would show on the outside how they feel on the inside through their clothing and demeanor and all of that. And these women, obviously, they lost their husbands, sons, all of that. They lost their entire family. So they're obviously in mourning. They're both widows at this point, a strange land to Ruth, like an alien land to Ruth, but probably at this point, having been as long as it has been, a strange land to Naomi again as well. So they've been in mourning. And Naomi, when she says this, wash yourself, put on your best clothes, she's not telling Ruth, okay, get yourself pretty so you can, woo Boaz. She's saying, no, it is time to come out of mourning. Lay yourself at his feet. Submit to him, because he is the guardian redeemer. He is the one who can save us. And this beautiful image of her taking off her sorrow and going to Boaz as essentially her savior out of this poverty and this misfortune that she and Naomi find themselves in. And it's a beautiful picture, and it is really a huge parallel to the gospel and how Jesus then gave that sacrifice so that we can take off our sin, take off our grief, and go to him for aid, for help, for peace. So that was such a cool image to me, and that's what my brain held on to in that entire sermon series. Like, that is the image and the war and like the whole explanation that I hang on to, because it's such a cool and beautiful imagery for the gospel. So that was really cool. He gets in a whole thing about historical events with women being under the power of different men and how the men took advantage of that and all of that. Whereas in this case, Boaz doesn't take advantage of Ruth, and he offers her everything he can and more. And, this whole thing is basically a betrothal at this point. And yet, in the secrecy of the threshing floor, they hold to an honorable standard, and they don't do it, even though no one would know about it. So that was the rest of the sermon, which wasn't as interesting as the whole taking off their sorrow and all of that. That was the cool part. Chapter 4 is she marries Boaz. Naomi then, has her grandson, whatever else, and gains a son and Boaz, and then ends with the genealogy leading up from Ruth leading up to David, who we know is in the genealogy of Jesus. And so laying that groundwork to be like, she's in the genealogy of Jesus. So that was cool. Ruth was a very, doing it in tandem with that sermon series was very cool, just to see the historical details and the symbolism of things. It was very cool to have that explained throughout. So that was a fun book to read. If we go in order of me reading them, next is Hosea. I got a thing for the prophets, guys. I don't know what it is, but I'm in a stage of life where I like to read the prophets, the Old Testament prophets. It's fun, and I underline lots of things. Yeah, it's been a hot minute, so I don't remember what exactly I'll be talking about, but we'll just see what's underlined in here. We have more name things. So Hosea marries, the term in here is promiscuous woman, so it's like an unfaithful woman, someone he knows will be unfaithful, have children with her. And he's like, okay, cool. Don't understand this, but cool. So he marries this unfaithful woman named Gomer and, has children with them as God commands. He has daughters. Yes, both daughters. No, a daughter and a son. He has a few children. Daughters and sons and all of that. But the names are really cool. So he names their firstborn daughter Lahrama, which is not loved, and then later names one of their sons Lo-Ami, which means not my people. And then, so it goes through all of that. It's like, your daughter is named not loved, your son is named not my people, and goes through that and kind of a symbolism for how Israel is to him as his children. And then starts verse 1 of chapter 2. Say to your brothers, my people, and of your sisters, my loved ones. And so taking his children to symbolize Israel, naming them not loved, not my people, and then coming to the end of this, the beginning of chapter 2, and goes, say to your brothers, my people, and of your sisters, my loved ones, and just turning back onto it and being, let's begin our word to the people with a reverse of your children, which other people might not necessarily know. There are definitely people who would know his children and their names, but some symbolism, but almost more for him, so that name meanings are so good. I read this right after Ruth too, so I was in the meaning of names mindset. And then at the end of chapter 2 as well, in verse 23, I will plant her for myself in the land. I will show my love to the one I called not my loved one. I will say to those called not my people, you are my people, and they will say, you are my God. So starting off his more prophetic language with, you are loved, you are my people, and ending it with, I will call you loved, I will call you my people, and you will call me your God. And just, I love that so much. Just the names and the wordplay. That's one of the things that the prophets do so well. And it's why, probably part of the reason I have really enjoyed reading through them recently, is just being of the age now where I can understand this wordplay and see these connections and all of that. It's very fun. Then we have Hosea's reconciliation with his wife, where he goes back and gets her and has to buy her back from a guy. And it's so much symbolism towards Jesus happens in the Old Testament, and not just through the prophecies, like the literal in writing, spoken prophecies list, in how the prophets then were commanded to live their lives, and how Ruth lived her life, and how her story unfolded. There's just so much symbolism for Jesus, and it's so good. Oh, it's so good. Hindsight is 20/20. You sit there and read through, it's oh my gosh, how did the Pharisees and stuff miss it? And then you look and it's but we have hindsight. We have the ability to read through Jesus' story in its entirety and go back to the Old Testament and see how all of this played out. And it's just oh my gosh, it's so obvious. They were living through it. They couldn't see beyond what was happening right in front of them at that time. So it's, that's something I've noticed. I'm rewatching The Chosen for Lent season as well. I'm almost done with it already. Something I've noticed this time watching through it is I can almost understand the Pharisees more. It's as they talk about why they are against Jesus, as they talk about, you're going against this law and this law. It's yes, they're holding far too tightly to their tradition, holding far too tightly to these laws that weren't even necessarily put into place by God, but were put into place by them. They're holding on far too tightly to that, but they view it as the holy law of God, which is above everything else. And they see this man whom they don't have any other context for beyond, you're going against this law. You're going against these things that we see as sacred. And so I'm not rooting for the Pharisees in any way, shape, or form, but I suddenly have realized, like, I have a sudden level of understanding watching through The Chosen the second time around and seeing how they bring up, like, you're going against this. You're going against this. Like, you're doing work on the Sabbath, which God rested on the Sabbath. It's like they take those regulations much too far, obviously. But like this mindset of the Sabbath is this holy day of the week. God rested. We are meant to rest. So it's just interesting seeing that and then realizing like they're living in the midst of this. They are holy men. They have this mindset of this is what is holy. This is the law. And then Jesus comes in and they can't understand it. And he's going against things that they have seen as sacred and they have seen as holy. And so it's interesting to take a step out of the like, oh my gosh, it's so obvious, and realize, no, we have hindsight. We have the advantage of seeing the whole picture at the same time, whereas they were in the middle of it and they couldn't understand. And so they were terrified and they acted out rashly, because that's what we do as humans. We either run, when there's something we don't understand, we either run from it or attack it. That's like the only two responses to something we don't understand. So, yeah, sorry. Another kind of allusion to Jesus as well in chapter 6, verse 2. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will restore us that we may live in his presence. And just, it's like he died. It's 2 days. He is dead. Basically just, because that's the reason he stayed dead for more than just going into the tomb. He needed to truly prove to all those who witnessed that, no, he's dead. He's been in a tomb. He's been buried for 2 days. And then still come back and being like, yeah. So yeah, it's like dying those 2 days, he takes on our sin and he takes on our punishment and he fights against Satan. And on the third day, he rises again, and that is what restores us to life and the ability to live in his presence. It's insults to the, at the time, current generation of Israel. Chapter 9, verse 10. When I found Israel, it was like finding grapes in the desert. When I saw your ancestors, it was like seeing the early fruit on the fig tree. But, and then he continues for like the rest of the chapter. Chapter 10, verse 12 through and 13. So righteousness for yourselves, reap the fruit of unfailing love, and break up your unplowed ground. For it is time to seek the Lord until he comes, and shower his righteousness on you, and showers his righteousness on you. But you have planted wickedness, you have reaped evil, and have eaten the fruit of deception, because you have depended on your own strength and on your many warriors. Chapter 11 is talking about God's love for Israel, and the entire first section is like comparing Israel to a child and how a child is raised up and the things they have to learn. Oh man. So chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. But the more they were called, the more they went away from me. They sacrificed to the Baals, and they burned incense to images. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by the arms when they did not realize it was I who healed them. I led them with cords of human kindness, with tears of love. To them I was like one who lifts a little child to the cheek, and I bent down to feed them. And it sticks out to me because I work in childcare, and this is my entire every day of my life for like 8 hours is helping children walk, giving children food, and in some cases, depending on the age, helping them eat. And this is my life, and seeing this is how God loves his people. More hints at Jesus in chapter 13, verse 14. I will deliver this people from the power of the grave. I will redeem them from death. Where, O death, are your plagues? Where, O grave, is your destruction? So Hosea is just fun. There's more in there that I had underlined, but it was a lot of just random, that was cool phrasing or a cool metaphor or whatever. So yeah, Hosea was fun. I've had a great time reading the Old Testament prophets. It's been a very fun time. Like Jeremiah and Lamentations, peak. Hosea, very good. I think those are the main ones that I've gotten into so far. I know there's still Isaiah and like Ezekiel, and probably more than that, but like I'll get into them eventually. I have a list of the books of the Bible and I'm just slowly going through them. So we'll get there. Okay, the last one is in my NIV, it's Song of Songs. I think I've also seen it as Song of Solomon, depending on your translation. So Song of Songs, I think it's also called the marriage book of the Bible. And I read this one because my fiance recommended it. So not really of my own volition, technically. Like I still chose obviously to read it, but like it was because of his recommendation to read it. And I will just say, I will come right out and say it. I don't think it was necessarily the right time for me to read this book of the Bible. I didn't really get much, if anything, out of it this time reading through it. I don't know what determines what mood I am in and what mindset I am in to read a particular book of the Bible. Because I'm reading Psalms, as I said, which is the longest book in the Bible. There are 150 Psalms. I am on like 52. I'm a third of the way there. But I mentioned that to my brother's girlfriend. She was like, oh yeah, no, I had to stop at like 35 because I got bored. And I'm sitting here and I am enjoying every second of reading the Psalms, and I am underlining things, and I am seeing all of these things that allude to Jesus, that are just good prayers for me in this stage of my life. I'm just finding so many things about like God's character and how our relationship should be with him. And I'm finding all of these things while I'm reading through the Psalms, and it's so good. And like reading through Jeremiah and Lamentations and Hosea, and even like Romans beforehand. It's just, I've gotten so much out of it, and I've really enjoyed reading the Bible in this way, where I'm not just like reading it in order or reading it chronologically or letting someone else tell me how to read it. I'm picking a book randomly, seemingly randomly, and just going through it. And it's been so good, and it's been so like productive and meaningful to go through. And so Song of Songs is in here for a reason, and there are things in there, and I'm sure there will be a time when I read it and I get something out of this. But the mindset I am in currently was not prepared for this book. It was meant for a different, I was in the mindset for something else as compared to Song of Songs. So yeah, I went through, it's a lot of imagery and it's a lot of metaphors, and it's basically just a man and a woman who love each other going back and forth about each other, and in, you know, all of these compliments and these things, and it's all imagery and it's all metaphors and it's all symbolism. And do I love the symbolism in the Bible? Yes, but every single line in this book is symbolism, and I was not prepared for that, and I was not in the mindset for that, and not so yeah, I literally got to the end of Song of Solomon, closed my Bible and went, and people think reading Revelation is hard. Like, yes, Revelation is insane, and everything is a metaphor and everything is symbolism and imagery and all of that. And I get that. And a lot of the difficulty in reading Revelation, I think, comes from people trying to use it to predict the end times, which is not what it's meant for. But I sit there and I read Song of Songs and I'm just like, no, this is harder. This is more difficult for me to wrap my head around than Revelation. Maybe it's because the symbolism is about something very different from pretty much every other version of symbolism that happens in the Bible. All of the other symbolism, like, it's about God, it's about Jesus, it's about our relationships with each other and commands that Jesus gives us. And that is where pretty much all of the symbolism happens in the Bible and what it's pointed towards. And then we have Song of Songs, which is entirely symbolism about another person that you love. And I feel like I need to go line by line in Song of Songs and decipher what each symbol means in order to understand what the heck they are saying. So yeah, I don't even have any. I have maybe one thing underlined. I have one thing underlined. And yeah. Is one line of one verse, and it's about self-sacrifice, and it says, "My own vineyard I had to neglect." So the self-sacrifice for another person that you love, that is what I got out of Song of Songs. Not because it is a bad book, not because it is worse than any other book in the Bible. They are all God's inspired, the inspired word of God. But Sage was not in the mindset to read that book. Even though I am getting married, I am not in the mindset to read that book. Like, my brain has been going in so many different directions that, like, I haven't even had the chance to slow down and think about marriage and the fact that I'm getting married. Like, I have the ring on every day at work and I'm doing the wedding planning, but like the reality of being married to my fiance has not really set in yet because I have my brain has been pulled in so many different directions, which includes the wedding planning. We are getting there, and it's just been a lot in life recently. And so it's been very nice to take this Lent season and focus on my faith and on God and really refocus myself back into what really matters. And yeah. Has been very nice and very helpful and very good for my whole health, let's be honest. Anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts on Hosea and Ruth and Song of Songs. I will probably get back to I will probably revisit Song of Songs at some point. I don't know when. I choose these books very randomly and arbitrarily, but I will get back to it at some point, and maybe when I come back to it of more of my own volition, it will mean more. But as it stands, sorry, Peter. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Feel free to drop yours in the comments. I'm posting videos on this channel on Saturdays for the foreseeable future. Again, one more month of CDA class. I feel like life will get infinitely easier after CDA class is over. So posting videos on this channel on Saturdays for the time being, and posting videos on my audiobook channel on Thursdays yet. I'll see y'all next time.